Welcome to the Dottie Coffman Show and to the year 2016. Can you believe it? I'm so glad that you've decided to join me today on the Dottie Coffman Show. I love having you with me. So stay tuned because we just seem to keep stirring things up. Welcome, everyone, to the Dottie Coffman Show. Glad to have you today listening in. I have a very esteemed colleague in the entertainment business. Well, kind of with me, I guess. We kind of do different things, but yet we're involved together. Dr. Fred Eichelman, and I'm just so proud to have you, Dr. Fred. Please introduce yourself to the listeners.
Well, all I can do is say hello, and I'm happy to be here. Of course, at my age, I'm happy to be anywhere. But I certainly had the pleasure of meeting you, Dottie, for the first time last summer at the Western Film Fair and Nostalgia Convention, and finding out what a fantastic radio person you are. I'm a retired teacher, and I've been very fortunate over the years to have met a lot of outstanding people in my lifetime that have been a tremendous influence in my growing up, my teaching, and later my ministry, which right now involves Point North Outreach, which is a Christian media organization.
Yes, you've been involved. When you say teacher, that just only skims the surface for what you have done over the past years and years and years, because now you are involved in, I don't know how you would say it, restoring, bringing back, bringing to the forefront some of these wonderful TV shows, movies, actors, actresses. Let's not forget them. They were the foundation of modern TV. It's too bad we just didn't stick with them. Because, modern TV and stuff has gone off on a tangent in a different direction. But those were such solid people and solid shows, and you're really involved in that.
Well, I've had the pleasure of it. It began when I was a kid. I lived in a very small town, and would you believe I discovered they had a time machine? Not like H.G. Wells' description of one. It was a big block building with a sign out front saying such and such a film, whichever that was, which I learned quickly, because I found when I went into this building, I could be taken marvelously to the past, to the future, or any place in the world I could ever imagine being. Movies.
Wow.
Pictures.
Oh, my.
And I actually, in many ways, I could say, learned more from movies and later from TV, things that I never learned in school, and it made school more interesting to me because I learned to think visually, and so I was an avid reader, and I could, do this. But what happened later when I began to teach, this was back in the 50s, and all that was available were these old films that they would furnish from the state, black and white, about things that the kids would fall asleep during. And I thought, why not use commercial films, which I did. And like first in government classes, Mr. Smith goes to Washington.
Yes.
The Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court when I was in world history. Granted, films would not give you the perfect picture, but the thing was, there was a hook.
Right.
And I began writing people that were involved in these films, and a lot of them were interested. That's how I became friends. One of the persons that is very dear to us, who is on our board of directors for the Point North Outreach, I fell in love with when I was age 12, Rhonda Fleming. And she had made not just the Connecticut Yankee, but other films, and she wanted to know about it.
Right.
So this led to acquaintance with a lot of film stars and people who are also politicians and in other fields too over the years.
Right. Did you find because you're a strong Christian, did you find back in those days that these people that you were meeting, say go back 40 years, 50 years, whatever it is, we won't talk about it. Did you find a lot of those people had good faith foundations in their lives?
I found that it really hit me my freshman year in college, because while I was a movie buff and fan, and also very much enjoyed theology, C.S. Lewis, and other writings, I didn't associate them together until on a TV show, Abbott and Costello, they brought out these four amazing ladies. Rhonda Fleming was one, Jane Russell, Connie Haynes, who was a big band singer, and Burl Davis, who also was a big band singer, and they sang what was known as gospel pop. And I found out afterwards that they had Bible study programs in Hollywood.
Wow.
And that really interests me, because in the one that was run out of Jane Russell's home that Rhonda worked with, Jane Russell was a pastor, as was her mother. A lot of people don't know that.
No.
And coming to those sessions were Roy Rogers, Dale Evans, a guy that seemed kind of interested in politics named Ronald Reagan. A whole lot of people like that. And so I could see that, and I found that even though the big emphasis, especially today, is kind of very secular, there are Christians out there, and there are Christians making films across the nation.
And I think, Dr. Fred, I see a surge in the strength of those Christians. They're getting more outspoken. They're not hiding their light under a bushel. They're really starting to say, and I don't mean offensive in an offensive way, but they're really starting to say, yes, I'm a Christian, and I'm proud of it. Now let's move on.
Yeah. One story that I've heard over and over is that I'm also the editor of the publication of Outreach, which is Point North Outreach. And I've heard this story from different stars, past and present, that there is real discrimination against them. For example, a couple like Morgan Brittany was told that she could not wear a cross. She could not do that at all. And there are others that, have actually, one lady that was very involved in a TV show I used in the classroom, Star Trek, is Grace Lee Whitney. Grace Lee is no longer with us. She's with the Lord. But she was a Messianic Jew, strong Christian lady.
Wow.
And she actually had to move up north in California because she just found it was impossible to make it, as a Christian. She would go to conventions, Star Trek conventions, and she would be told, now, we want you to give a talk, but we don't want you to mention God or Christianity. That's why when we had her the programs that we set up here, she was thrilled to be able to do that. And of course, privately, even at those conventions, when people came by her table and would talk with her, because she would testify in her testimony that she had been a alcoholic and drug addict, and she said that she was really into it deeply until she got in the 12-step program and AA, and then she became a Christian.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story, because when my twin sons, my redheaded twin sons, were young, they were very much sought after to be in commercials and things, and we were living in South Florida, and we got offered the first movie. We did, I think, 3 movies with this particular production company, and we got offered the first one, and of course all the relatives and friends said, oh my gosh, you don't want to be involved with him, because my twins were only 6 at the time, 6 or 7, and you don't want to get them started in that because it's a brutal world and there's no Christians. Well, the makeup lady from that production company came to the house, and she had on a Jesus is the reason for the season pin. And she was coming to the house because they were redheads. She wanted to make sure that the lighting and everything was going to be okay. And I said, oh my gosh, are you a Christian? She said, oh yeah, there's a lot on the film set. Well, when we got on the film set, and of course, as you know, as a parent, I was sitting waiting, doing a lot of waiting. Somebody came over, tapped me on the shoulder and said, Miss Coffman, while you're waiting for the boys to finish their scenes, we're doing Bible study over here in the corner. Would you like to join us? I'm like, what? What?
Well, that's great. That's beautiful when you hear that. And there are people trying to make, we're not just talking Christian films or films that are family films that people can enjoy.
Right.
Now, some of your big stars that already have big names, they're not afraid to come out. Sylvester Stallone recently has been doing that. And, he's big enough star that they're not going to touch him. They're not going to touch him, as far as getting roles or anything else.
Right.
And this is good. And, of course, they're paving the way. And Hollywood is kind of losing the mystique that it has. Because, as you know, there are film companies now in Tennessee and West Virginia and up in Northern Virginia and also in Georgia,
South
Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
They're opening up all over.
Right. Well, here in Georgia, we Courageous and all these wonderful Christian films are coming out, and I think people that go and see those films are surprised now at the good quality. They're not B movie quality or C or D even, they're quality films, and people are going, wow, this is a Christian film, but look how good it is. So we are making a mark, and we're growing here in the Atlanta area exponentially. I mean, it is unreal, the work that's going on here, Dr. Fred. You need to come down and meet some of the people and see who all is here involved in this, but tell us a little bit about this Western Film Fair, because that was fascinating to me.
Well, we ourselves, my wife and I and some friends, had run conventions here for about 30 years in the Roanoke Valley of Virginia, going from actually kind of evolved from Rovercon to finally the last few we had were Point North Christian Media Conventions. And we had heard about a decade ago, this event in Winston-Salem. Well, actually, then it was in another area, but now Winston-Salem, North Carolina, the Western Film Fair and Media Convention. And it's Western orientated, but they do have other genres represented, even though I'd say Westerns are number one. What attracted us is that the board members, the people that we got to know, all of them are very strong Christians. And the program, they have a big room with a lot of memorabilia salespeople, and your stars are gathered and sign autographs and sell pictures and books and DVDs they've made, and they have continually running movies, a lot of westerns, but sometimes films that are, that the guests have been involved with. Last year, for example, this past year, Nancy Stafford, who's become almost a regular now with them.
Yes.
Her film, Christmas for a Dollar, was shown. We're hoping that a film that they finished last year, Heaven Bound, may be shown. And they have panels and they have awards programs and things of this sort. It's a fun thing. A lot of people dress Western. I have to admit, I was never a costumer, but for that program, I do wear cowboy ducks and enjoy it, And everybody, it's what I like. It's not too big to the point where you have time to talk with folks who are stars. They had, for example, this past year, a man who's a pastor, Native American, his son, one of the sons of the fellow Jason who played Tom. His name was Steve Silverhill. He was Tonto's son, St. James Silverhill's son.
Right.
Very fascinating.
Right. I got to meet him and got a picture when we were there. And that's what I find fascinating, Dr. Fred, is that you walk around, you see all the memorabilia, for one thing, all the old pictures and you walk around and you see all the DVDs and the old tapes. It's just fascinating, especially for, I admit, the older people that grew up with Roy Rogers and with Fury and all these older movies and actors, and then we see that it's brought back to life and it brings back such wonderful memories.
Well, speaking of Roy Rogers, his daughter, youngest daughter, was adopted, Choctaw Indian girl, Dottie Rogers. Dottie's a nickname that she strictly goes by. Is going to be a guest this summer at their event, which is going to be July 4th, the 13th to the 16th in Winston-Salem. And Dottie is writing a book, and she's made a few film appearances. She's not what you call strictly a film star, but, I think people want to meet her because I've had an enjoyable time talking with her by phone and through email.
Mm-hmm.
She'll have a lot of stories to tell about growing up with Roy and Dale.
And you know what? You've got another thing coming up in the fall, too, because Nancy was mentioning that again to me and saying, really try to come because you'll meet a lot of people, probably some interview opportunities. Tell us about that.
All right. I'm assuming that Nancy was referring to October 3rd.
Yes.
I mentioned the 30 years of conventions, and we haven't had one for 10 years. We're having what we call a media event reunion. It's going to be held at Holiday Inn, which is an airport Holiday Inn. It's a one-dayer. It's not a convention, but it will be like a convention because we'll have the memorabilia sales, like I said. The stars that will be attending will be, and there's 4 so far. The stars that will be attending will be having tables to autograph, and then in another room, they'll be going to speak, large room, and there'll be films based on things that they've done. For example, you mentioned Nancy probably will show one of her favorite matlocks. She'll get to make you so much, and she'll talk about it. And there'll be other things, too. Another guest is a friend of ours that goes back over a quarter of a century. And you wouldn't know it because she looks very young. It's Deanna Lund, who Land of the Giants, and she's been in movies with Frank Sinatra and with Elvis and Burt Reynolds, and you just name it. She's got quite a background. She's now starting to get involved again, and because she's taken off time to be a grandma. We're wanting to get involved.
Yes.
And then there is Kathy Carver, who noticed her family affair, and of course, it's real funny, every one of these stories, you tend to think, I think I'm strictly for this or that, like Nancy has done a whole lot more than just, Matlock. Kathy Carver is a film producer and director, made films, and she goes way back. Remember the Ten Commandments movie with Charlton Heston? Before your time, I'm sure, but anyway.
Oh, no. Yeah, she was one of the little kids in that.
Well, there's a scene. This was her very first scene. She's a tiny little girl, and there's a scene when the Israelites are leaving Egypt, and this little girl doesn't have a way to do but walk, and Heston picks her up and hugs her and puts her on a camel. And, and she's the only one who can say she was actually hugged by Charlton Heston. And the fourth one, Carolyn Monroe, is coming all the way in from London. And she's another dear friend, all 4 of them all. But Caroline, she is noted for basically hasn't made movies for a while, except she's on TV shows that have been mainly in England. But she also, I guess the 2 that she's most noted for in this country, one was she played the female villainess in The Spy Who Loved Me, the helicopter pilot and assistant to the fellow who was the big bad guy. The movie that a lot of people remember a big starring role with The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, and that movie will be showing at this event.
Ah.
The Ray Harryhouse. The special effects. I've shown his movies, Ray Harryhausen, to kids, like our grandkids.
Yeah.
They're really used to seeing today all these special effects they're done on computers. They see what this guy has done and they think it's superior. He was just a master at the special effects he did.
Yeah.
And Caroline will probably talk some about him, but she'll be with us. So those are the four that we have. We may have more. I cannot say that for sure.
And what city is this?
This will be in Roanoke, Virginia.
Ah.
And it's at very reasonable because attendance, just to attend the event, there's a banquet to the program. It's separate. It's big. The program itself, the regular day, runs from 8 in the morning to 7. And that's just $15, but the banquet is $35. And they come up with a special that a person wants to go to both the banquet and the other, for the full day, is $40.
Wow.
And the tables, we've had authors interested. In fact, right now there's a group here in the Roanoke Valley that I would love to see, similar groups everywhere. This lady just formed it 3 years ago, and it's called the Roanoke Valley Christian Authors Group. About 25. They've all written books. A lot of them self-published and others that are not. And some of them are already buying tables for this. The tables are only $20, which is like it doesn't count the banquet, but it's for the others. And I mention that because most conventions you go to, even the ones we ran, tables ran $100 or more.
Right.
So
right.
The price for this, I'd say, is tremendously reasonable.
Such a deal. And what group is that called? Roanoke what?
The Roanoke Valley Christian Authors.
Okay.
And they meet once a month. We just recently joined it when they heard about my book, and they took an interest in that. And we have a meeting with them this next Thursday coming up.
Well, and speaking of your book, tell us a little bit about this book, because this life that you're describing that you've led over the last several years and getting in contact with these people, because, Dr. Fred said, many, me included, you think of these stars as being untouchable. You can't reach them. They have people surrounding them that don't let phone calls get through. But that is not true in many cases. They are just normal people. They want to have friends just like you do. And they've been very approachable from my standpoint. So you've gotten to know a lot of them. So you went and used a lot of your experience. So tell us a little bit about this book.
Well, the book is titled Faith, Family, Film, A Teacher's Trek. And as I said earlier in the interview, it kind of it covers what I've talked about. It's not necessarily an autobiography, but it's through my views over my years of how, when I say how it influenced my growing up and my profession and my ministry, technically it carries over, but I think it influenced everybody. And the book covers people like John Wayne and Roy Rogers, Elizabeth Taylor, Jimmy Stewart, Ronald Reagan, Andy Griffith, various Star Trek members, and people up for the present now, especially those involved in faith films like Nancy herself is, Nancy Stafford, as well as others, Kevin Sorbo and people like that. And it's really, goes into anecdotes and stories, and there are things that I can get into that I've been told, not just in interviews and sightings, but told personally, that I don't think have ever been known. I don't think people are aware of it. And of course, the book itself, in a sense, is kind of also a plea for the fact that we need to get more involved with working for faith films, family films, and
right.
television shows, and of course, and this goes beyond now because now people are like famous radio shows.
Yep.
On the net, this is very big now. Everybody has a computer or a cell phone or an iPad or tablet, and in fact, a lot of school systems, like the local one here, they basically acquire and arrange for every kid in middle school and high school to have their own laptop.
Yes. I think that's the way it's going, where they're not going to carry all these books around. They're going to have a laptop assigned to them. So, and nevertheless, you putting it down on paper, we need that more. We need these memories put down on paper. There's a documentation of them, so to speak. And because there's a lot of those people, when you mentioned Rhonda Fleming, I haven't thought about her in years, but she was a beautiful woman and such a lady. She and Nancy Stafford, to me, are the ultimate lady.
Well, I would say so. And Rhonda, we've visited in her home. We've never got her here to the East Coast, but as we would like. But we've been to her home a few times, and we correspond quite regularly. And Rhonda, her story is so great. She believes in miracles and she believes in angels. And we ran, and a lot of in this book will be taken from some of the past stories that we've had in Point North tidings about how her life, she felt 3 different occasions in her life she was saved. That rescue, things that couldn't happen to her.
Yeah.
And
wow.
She's, her story is very special. And there are other stories like that we've enjoyed, going into.
Right.
And yes, it's true. Nancy gets a lot of cut. In fact, Nancy wrote the introduction to this book.
Well, what is the name of the book again?
It's titled Faith, Family Film, A Teacher's Trek.
All right. Good. Faith, Family Film, A Teacher's
Trek.
Okay. This has been so fascinating because of the things that you have known, the people that you've met, the things you've been involved in, and I look forward to the Western Film Fair. I look forward to the event in October, to going up there. I'm excited about seeing people, and of course I like people anyway. I mean, that's what I do. I just like people. You don't have to have a title and you don't have to have an important job. I just am interested. Everybody has a story. Is that right?
Well, I felt that was obvious when I met you, that you're that kind of person, and I know that I'm glad you're working with Victory Radio and Television. Lisa Bennett, the CEO, that woman is a wonder. She's very humble.
Yes.
And yet, for heaven's sake, she won't take credit. She doesn't like to take credit for this, but
yes.
Good grief, when you consider the 9 TV stations or radio stations and planning eventually to be making films, she's amazing.
She is amazing, and I am enjoying working with her, and that was a God-ordained introduction. It just really was, because I had no idea when I went there that day that I would have this opportunity to talk with wonderful people like Dr. Fred Eichelman and Nancy Stafford and others, and I'm so pleased. So anyway, thank you, Dr. Fred, for being on the Dottie Coffman Show today.
And thank you for inviting me.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to let you know about my project, my book that came out last year in 2015 called Struggle to Bloom. It's all about the beginnings of my Christian life as a young woman struggling to figure out what God wanted me to do. So if you would like to get a copy of my book, Struggle to Bloom, please just email me at Dottie, D-O-T-T-I-E, Coffman, C-O-F-F-M-A-N, @gmail.com. That's Dottie, D-O-T-T-I-E, C-O-F-F-M-A-N, @gmail.com.
Twin Tigers Martial Arts is a Christian-based martial arts school in Winder, Georgia. They teach martial arts based on Christian values and principles. Twin Tigers is a partial sponsor of the Dottie Coffman Show. Owners and master instructors Nick Coffman, who teaches the Korean art of Tang Sudo, and Matt Coffman, who teaches the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, are the real-life twin sons of the host Dottie Coffman. The twins started the school when they were just 15, and the school will soon celebrate its 20-year anniversary. Twin Tigers believes in challenging all students, whether they are 3 or 93, to achieve their highest goals according to their individual capabilities. Nick and Matt claim Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, as the foundational verse of the school. Twin Tigers teaches the fruit of the Spirit along with the disciplines of martial arts. To learn more about Twin Tigers martial arts, go to tt-ma.com or call 770-307-1761.
Welcome to the Dottie Coffman Show, everybody. Glad to have you. My guest is Mamta Mishra. Isn't that a beautiful name? And she has written a book, but she has a wonderful story behind the book, and I want her to share that with us. I want you, first of all, Mamta, to introduce yourself to the listening audience.
Hi, Dottie. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
I've been so looking forward to this. Actually, I have a son who has autism, and he is 21 now. And I started the homeschool for him when he was around 3, and he was diagnosed when he was around 2 years, 7 months. And the journey since then has been going on.
Yes.
And the good thing, I think, what has happened is over time, I have been able to strike a balance. And I want to share about that with all the people who are listening to us, because I feel it has the potential to bring hope and happiness in their lives also.
Well, you know, Mamta, this autism thing is a big deal, and most of my listeners know I have an autistic grandson, so I'm right there with you. Of course, you've been going through it a lot longer if he's 21. And I just think this is such an important thing, and it's just going to get bigger, evidently. I mean, the numbers are growing and growing. So I would think any help that parents could get, you know, and we are involved in some support group activity and also some political group activity concerning this. When your son was first diagnosed, what were your first reactions?
Well, Dottie, it was really very depressing, because what had happened was I had not heard about autism before that. That was a new word to me. And then when I found out that there is no cure, it became very gloomy for me for a while. And I want to share that why me phase of my life, because I was able to come out of that, and I want to share that because unless I had not come out, I don't think we would be today talking about, this topic. It really helped me to do what I did. It was like I was hurting, I was in pain, I was in anger, all this. And at that time, Dottie, I didn't think that there were other people going through it. Now I know it's a natural process. And, that whenever we go through trauma or difficult situations in our lives, we feel all this. But at that time, I felt very lonely, very alone.
Yes.
But what happened to me was I also started praying regularly and incessantly, actually. And I do believe in the power of prayer, and I believe that it has healed me, given me courage and hope. I want to tell you what happened to me, and from then on, I took that step forward. One day, while I was praying, this voice spoke in my head, and it said, Prague has autism. Are you going to mope, cry, and sulk, or are you going to do something about it? And believe it or not, what happened was at that instant in time, I felt this enormous courage, and I promised myself that I was going to face autism head on. But it was easy saying that. Promising is easy, but to keep it is kind of hard.
Yes.
What happened was I had to go through this process. First, I had to take out all the negativity that I was feeling. And you have heard that you become what you think. Actually, you are what you think. And then I had to declutter my mind. And I read that we process like 60,000 thoughts that are redundant, most of them. And imagine how much traffic we have up there.
Right.
So I had to, kind of, now that I became conscious of that negativity, I wanted to declutter that. And that was garbage in, garbage out, kind of. And also to compartmentalize and to be in the moment. And believe me, let me tell you this, and you'll know what a mess I was. What happened was, like, one day, I was punching phone number in the microwave, and my husband saw that, and he's like, what in the world? Come back, don't go crazy, our kids are very young. And that is the moment, Dottie, that I realized that I'm not centered. I was able to compartmentalize and to be in the moment, like right here, right now,
right.
Like with you, totally. But at that time, I was not so, Dottie, actually, because it made me conscious of how not centered I was at that time.
Wow.
What happened was, in the morning one day, I was punching phone number on the microwave, and my husband got to see it. And he says, Mamta, please come back. Our kids are very young, and you can go crazy. And I'm like, gosh, I'm going crazy. And that is when I became conscious, and I wanted to realign myself.
Right.
And then also like changing worries to concerns. So what happens is when we are going on in this phase of trauma, we are always worrying. And I was doing the same thing. And worrying is like, in your mind's eye, you see all these dreary things.
Right.
And you're doing nothing about it.
Right. Right.
You're making mountain out of a molehead. And that's what I was doing.
Right.
And then it changed to concern. And what I mean by that is that was my first foot forward. What I was doing, Dottie, was, I was now wanting to change something. And for that, I started doing something about what I wanted to change. And believe it or not, I have found beautiful people who are ready to tread the path or be in this journey with me. Like today,
right.
You are part of this journey,
right.
This interview.
Right.
So it has really been actually challenging, but a beautiful, adventurous journey.
Well, it is, the whole thing, it's like hearing, that you have a dreaded disease. And when you first hear the words autism, your child has autism, and number one, most of us don't understand what that means. And so the unknown is a big fear at first. But my daughter went through the same thing. She was absolutely crushed. But after she made an adjustment to it, okay, now we're going to move forward. What are we going to do? And she decided, just to learn everything she could possibly learn about therapies, about schooling, about just everything. And she has done a tremendous amount of research, which I'm sure you have too. And a lot of other parents have. They take that into their hands, and so that's important. Now, did you say that you homeschooled your son?
Yes, Dottie. Actually, what happened was there is an incident that happened actually in Atlanta, Georgia. I was taking Parag to Emory University. It has a Walden school which teaches parents to bring out communication in kids with autism.
Uh-huh.
It's right there where you are in Georgia.
Right.
So, and I was taking Parag to every Wednesday over there, and after being driven there for 2.5 hours, he refused to perform anything. So I tell the therapist, no, whatever you showed to me, he's able to do it. And she'll be like, Mrs. Mishra, have patience. One day he will. And I'm like, oh no, she thinks I'm delusional, and maybe I'm not accepting the fact that my son is not able to. So this is what happened, Dottie. I was very pensive. When I came back home, what I did, I videotaped everything what Parag was able to perform. And the next time I showed her on this ancient device, VCR.
Yes.
And she, believe me, she not only believed me, but she became very proactive in teaching Parag. And since that day, videotaping remains in my homeschool. And the only thing that has changed is now we do it on iPad and iPhone.
Right, right.
And also, this incident made me go and get my master's in special education.
Wow.
Yeah, from Jacksonville State University. Because, Dottie, I realized that I had to be Parag's advocate.
Yes.
I had to have the knowledge and education to teach him. And I'm so thankful for Jacksonville State University because it has given me this ammunition of knowledge to not just help Parag, but other special need kids in general,
right,
and kids with autism in particular.
If you homeschooled him, did you miss out on socialization, or did you make it a point to make sure he was socialized with other children, other special needs kids, other typical kids? How did you work that part of it into your schedule?
That's a great question, actually, Dottie. What was happening is, everything that I was learning at the university, I was tweaking it and I was applying it through applied behavioral analysis, And let me tell you what applied behavioral analysis is in a common man's term. It is how we take information, retain it, process it, and then use it for our own benefit.
Right.
So under this, there are many things that, many teaching styles that I incorporated. And what happened was, we approached the school. Actually, I gave a talk on 18th over there. What happened was we went there and asked the school that, we are able to do everything except for the socialization that we need to give Parag.
Right.
Because kids in autism are lacking in 3 areas. And those are like communication, socialization, and behaviors. So we were addressing everything, but we were not able to provide him peer interactions and socialization. So what happened was Parag started going there part-time. Whatever he was learning at the homeschool, he was able to apply in the classroom setting, and all the tasks and skills, he was able to do it. And also, he was included in the fringe activities like PE, music,
really,
media room, going lunchroom, all that happened, Dottie. So I think Parag is a social butterfly. From the school, I'm telling you, I'm so thankful. Actually, he is a party animal, into people's business, and you may be like, really, is it a good thing? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Case of kids with autism,
yes,
it is an amazing thing.
Yes.
Because they generally want to be aloof, they don't want to interact with people. So I'm so thankful that the school worked hand in hand with us. So my homeschool had the advantage of, him giving this socialization through this private school. And also we had this report card going, which I had made for him.
Uh-huh.
It was somewhat like the IEP, Individual Education Plan.
Right.
So it had the short-term goal and the long-term goal. And the classroom teacher monitored Parag's progress and jotted it down in there. So we were always, we knew, where he's lacking, where he's advancing, and how to fill the gaps.
Right. Well, that's amazing, because some parents of autistic children wonder about that. They wonder, well, would the child be better off if I teach him at home, or would it be better off to integrate into a school setting? And it's hard to make that decision because, I homeschooled my twins, who are now 35 years old, but I homeschooled them starting in the 6th grade, and went forward all through high school. They were, typical kids. We had a ball, and everybody was worried about them being socialized. Well, they're not going to see people. They're not going to know how to act around people. Well, we were so involved in our church that they had plenty of integration and socialization with the kids, with the adults. They learned how to get along with the adults. And so I asked the question so that you could tell me what you did, and I'm glad you did, about doing that with your son and making it, for a life skill as you went through the homeschooling process. Now, what is he doing right now?
Actually, Dottie, the thing that I really want to share with everyone is that 4 years back, what happened was he was able to find a vocation. And let me tell you a story. There is a story behind how we were able to find his vocation. What happened was, Parag's pediatric neurologist, he said that we need to find a residential facility for Parag, because right now we were young, but as we grow older, we will need a place where we are comfortable for him to live in there. And we went to check a residential facility, which is about 15 minutes of drive from Gadsden, where I live. And believe it or not, I was delighted to see what I saw. What I saw was that these special need individuals, and they were not necessarily autistic, so they were sitting around a table and in a group of 5 or 6, and there was a supervisor supervising their activities. And Honda plant has given them this work where they put small car parts from different trays into a Ziploc. So when I came back home, I was like, wow, I want something meaningful and positive for Parag also, something very productive. I sent him to a local place where they evaluate if the individuals of autism and special need individuals,
right,
they can have some kind of job, and they train them also. The news that came back was not very encouraging. I was reading this piece of paper by the kitchen sink, and it said something like this: at this point in time, Parag is untrainable for any job. Yeah, and it was somewhat like that. And, what happened was, I was reading this piece of paper by kitchen sink. I remember sinking on my knees and crying and praying at the same time. And this voice spoke again, and it said, it's October, Christmas is around the corner, why don't you teach Parag to make candles? Everybody loves candles. And Dottie, believe it or not, what I did was wiped up my tears and went to Hobby Lobby. And then bought all this stuff for candle making.
Yes.
Books. And I realized that wax candle is very dangerous. Once it falls on the stove, it can lead to fire. So that idea was boxed. And then I went on researching, and to my delight, I found out about this gel candle. And gel candle is plant-based. So the fume that comes out of these candles are non-carcinogenic. I like all these natural stuff.
Right.
And it is very luminescent. The biggest thing that it has, it's very forgiving as a craft. And that's what I wanted, was if Parag made some mistake, he could redo it.
Right.
I don't know how many candles I must have bombed, and after removing all that glitches, then I taught it to Parag. Because I cannot teach experiments to Parag. I have to teach the results of the experiments.
Right.
And
Right.
then we gave away all these candles to our friends, and they were like, wow, it's beautiful. And we all had this peacock syndrome. And then I happened to talk to one of my friends who had a gift shop here. I said, it's such a shame. It's going to wrap up till next Christmas. And he loves to do it. What used to happen, Dottie, is, and what happens when he makes all these crafts, he's generally happy and hyper. That's who Prague is. But when he makes these crafts, he's totally focused and channeled. And you can see all that. There's 30-some videos in the book. Like, what all you have to do is go to the YouTube channel and type in the name of the book. It's Autism, Our Journey and Finding Happiness. And it gives everybody a perspective, not only face to the story, but actually you kind of become a witness to him progressing from a very young age,
right,
around 3 to till now.
Wow. But he is working now, you're saying.
Yes, so he has come a long way. And then what happened, this friend of mine, she said, can I see what he's making? And I said, yes. And she showed her all these candles. And she said, okay, can I sell them? I'm like, wow, really? And that's all history. That's when it all started.
Wow.
And Dottie, once I knew that this craft has come to stay, because people here, they call me candle maker's mom. And it is an amazing feeling because I'm known through my son's abilities.
Oh, that is so cool. What an encouraging story to hear. And now tell us the name of the book again.
It is Autism, Our Journey and Finding Happiness.
Autism, Our Journey and Finding Happiness. And her name is Mamta Mishra. Yay! So, and you can find the book where?
You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on Books A Million and Barnes and Noble.
And my friend Joseph Lumpkin actually did the publishing, did he not?
Yes, and I'm so thankful to him because he believed in the value of this story.
Yes.
And, so it has given me this opportunity to share, and it's a very encouraging story.
It is a very encouraging story because I couldn't tell you how many of our autistic children's parents really are wondering what is going to happen. What's going to happen to my child? Is he going to be able to go out into the world? Is he going to be able to live on his own? Is he going to be able to get married? Is he going to be able to do this, that? And it's a scary thing. So just to see the advancement of what your son has done and how hard you've worked, it does take a lot of work, doesn't it?
Yes, Dottie. And there's something else I want to tell to every parents and teachers and caregivers is, and your daughter, to find respite, because it's a long journey and the burning out rate is very high. So we need to find something, where we can just reinforce ourselves and say, okay, now I can deal with this.
Right.
That is very important, and that is one of the things that I want all the listeners to not, and it is not applicable just for autism. It's actually for life.
Yes.
If you are recharged, you are ready to face any challenges that comes in your way.
Right. And I would add to that if you're a single parent, and I know a lot of single parents, because unfortunately there's a history of, especially dads, not always dads, but mostly dads that leave. They don't want to deal with this. So the mom is left. I'm sure you have seen that too.
Yes, I have.
The mom is left to raise this child. And what's important to know is mom needs her time. And that's right now what we're trying to give our daughter is there's plenty of family members that can, relieve her and let her have a weekend and just to herself. And it's really difficult for her to go day after day after day after day and work full time.
I know.
And do those things. So, take time for yourself, because if you're not healthy, you're not going to help this child. So, I'm so glad to finally meet you, Mamta. We've been talking back and forth. So I'm really glad to meet you. I wish you the best on this book because I think it's awesome. Awesome idea.
Thank you, Dottie, so much. And I say namaste. That means I bow to the divine in you.
Is that good? I hope so. And thank you, Joseph Lumpkin, my dear friend, for sending her this way. And thank you, listeners, for listening to the show and all the good information that we have here. Thank you again, Mamta.
Bye. Thank you.
This devotion is taken from the book Designed for Devotion by Diane Neal Matthews. Joining the fight, Numbers 32. The tribes of Reuben and Gad noticed that the land east of the Jordan River, sometimes called the Transjordan area, would make excellent grazing country for large numbers of livestock. Since the land had already been cleared of enemies, they asked permission to settle in the area. Their request shocked Moses. He feared that their unwillingness to cross the Jordan would discourage the other tribes from entering the land that God had promised to give Israel. Moses reminded them how the previous generation had lost heart about the conquest after the spies' negative report, bringing God's judgment. He accused the tribes of Gad and Reuben of being just like their ancestors. The men of Reuben and Gad assured Moses that they had no desire to shirk their responsibility to help conquer the promised land. After they built pens for their livestock and cities for their families to live in, their fighting men would head the army invading Canaan. The two tribes would not return to their homes until every Israelite had taken possession of his own land. Moses agreed to this proposal. On condition that they keep their promise, he assigned the Transjordan area to the inheritance of Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh. As believers, we all have the responsibility to fight for each other. Unfortunately, it's easy to get so comfortable in our own little pew that we ignore the struggles of the people around us. Our prayers can dissolve into nothing more than self-centered petitions without us noticing it. God grants us the privilege of interceding for others as they battle against sin and our common enemy, Satan. Our efforts may help a fellow believer conquer an enemy and claim their rightful spiritual inheritance. Just as God still fights for his people today, he still expects us to work together. Will we shirk our responsibility, or will we cross the Jordan and join the fight? Ephesians 6:18 says, "Stay alert and be persistent in your prayers for all believers everywhere." Folks, this is Dottie Coffman, and I'm proud to be part of Victory TV and Radio. Victory Television Network has classic TV shows and films, plus Bible-based content for kids, and it's a free channel on Roku. The subscription channels on Roku, all of Victory's, are $2.99 a month each, help to support the free ministry channel. There are several 2 kids channels, Victory Tunes Network 24/7 live and Victory Tunes Network on demand. There are 2 classic Western channels, Victory Westerns 24/7 live and Victory Westerns on demand. Victory Classic Cinema plays classic drama, comedy, and film. Victory Classic Radio are old-time radio shows. We also have a fun channel called Catbox TV. People use it to help keep their pets calm and not suffer from separation anxiety.
when the owners are away at work or school. Remember, it's all on Roku. That's Victory Television Network, including radio. Thank you for listening to the Dottie Coffman Show today, and I hope it was an adventure. Thank you to Deborah Hightower, who wrote my theme music just for the Dottie Coffman Show. Tune in again, because we just keep on stirring things up.